Hey everyone, welcome to the House Church video for the second last week of our SoulSearch series. It's a down week and it's been a fantastic series. I actually had a local therapist tell me that they're not taking any new clients unless the clients first go through something like the SoulSearch series, if they're a part of our Sunday nights, because the work that we're doing and that the Holy Spirit is doing in us is just so foundational that until that's done, there's not much of a foundation to build on. So thank you to all of you in house churches, and especially that crew on Sunday night who's dove into this so well. I really think that you are becoming the new foundation of this church, and God is going to do some amazing things as He makes you healthy and whole in your soul. That rhymed, so I apologize for that. All right, let's talk about fears as you're going to be processing in your house church. I think a good question to be asking is, what about myself do I think is normal, but other people look at and go, oh, that's a little bit weird? It's a scary question to ask. It's a question that can make you paranoid, but it's a good starting question because there's some things that we've all accepted about ourselves that we actually think are the case for everybody. So if anybody was facing what I'm facing, they would do the same thing. They would be as impatient as I am. They would be as angry. They would have the same anxiety. They would have the same boundaries. They would say the same things. And that's not the case. A healthier person would respond differently than an unhealthier person. But the thing with the soul, and specifically this week with fear, is that we actually don't know what's going on under the surface. And so what we think is normal might come out of something that is really broken. Your fears live underneath the soil. So imagine what you're doing is the plant. You've got anxiety, you've got impatience, you're bearing all this fruit, but underneath there's something that's driving it, and we don't always know what's underneath it. But a good way to start to find it is to say, what of my above the soil part of me do people look at and go, that's weird. Why did they react that way? And if you start there, then you can find some things that take you to a few aha moments. Like, oh, wow, okay, so not everybody would be angry in that situation. Not everybody would succumb to temptation or lust or addiction. Not everybody would do that. What's going on with me? And as you ask that question in community, which you're doing in your house church, and as you ask that question, especially in community before God, inviting the Holy Spirit into it, what you will find is that there is a fear underneath that's driving it. So maybe it's a fear of abandonment that's turning into control, something like that. The fear is underneath the line. The stuff you see is above. So what's that fear? What is the wound behind that fear? And as you go back to it and you heal the fear. For me, I remember this realization that, like, oh wow, not everybody has this low level of anxiety. I just thought that that's what pastors were supposed to feel, because you never know when you meet somebody and they got something they're concerned about or something to share. And so you live your life like this, just waiting for that to come. Oh, that's not normal. There's actually pastors that don't have that tension there. Where does that come from? Start to go below the surface, find the fear, find the wound, and invite Jesus into dealing with it. And that last part of Him dealing with it would be, my conviction is that He can, and that everybody has something for Him to deal with. So two convictions there. You've never met somebody who isn't scared, and that includes when you look in the mirror. That's a fearful person looking back at you. Nobody gets through life scot-free. We all have wounds, and those all create fears, and those fears spin into behaviors that make us less than we're supposed to be. But my conviction is, because I've seen it over and over again in other people and also in my own life, that God doesn't just show us these fears and go, ha, that's what's going on. I sure can diagnose that well. Aren't I smart? No, He diagnoses so that He can heal. And He brings these things to the surface. He pulls the root issues up out of the soil, brings them into the light, and then gets rid of them. He's not a victim to time. He can actually go back to the place where you were first wounded, where that fear first entered, and bring healing. And once the fear isn't there, then the plant changes. So enjoy diving into this with each other. Be really honest with each other. This shouldn't be one of the house churches where when somebody says, is there something strange about me? Are there patterns you see in me that maybe make you think there's a fear in me? And everyone's looking at each other going, who's going to talk? who's going to tell him that we all see this, and everybody who's met him in the first 30 seconds can see this in him, but he can't see it in himself. And then you talk about it together, about who should break it to him. Not tonight. Be the voice of hope and help diagnose and say, actually, yeah, you know what? You get really angry really fast, or you get really defensive really fast, and the rest of us are confused about why that is. I wonder what that's connected to. Why don't we ask the Holy Spirit? And as you do that, you're going to find healing and health for your soul. Grace and peace, everyone. Have a great house church.